Alright, so in this lesson, we're going to get our first-person version of the gun out of Maya. Now this one's actually going to have some animation on it, so we can actually see the gun kick when we fire it. We're going to pull that out of Maya and into Unreal Ed in preparation to code it up and get it ready to play.
Okay, and again, continuing from the last lesson where we still have the LP Rifle Anim package open. Going back over into Maya now, I want to go and load up the file for our first-person mesh. So, load that in. Now we have a bit of a higher detail model and a similar skeleton structure where we have a root and a flashbone.
Okay.
So starting out, this is going to be very similar, where we go to character and create a character set over the root, and except for calling this one LP Rifle first. So we'll create the character set, but now we have animation to deal with. If we take a look at the timeline, we've got 2 frames where the gun is idle, and then we have kind of a recoil sequence, which we use for a fire sequence. We need to set these up and get them ready so that the export plugin can read in the data and set up the correct sequences.
Okay.
In order to do that, we'll take a look at tracks and creating clips.
So the plugin isn't going to read animation out of your timeline.
No, it's actually going to take in clips on the track editor, which kind of makes sense because that way you can set up a clip for each sequence.
Exactly.
And then very cleanly set up how your animation is laid out.
Very cool.
So I'm going to go up to Window, Animation Editors, and open the Tracks Editor. So here we've got the character set we just created.
Now, given, if you haven't been using Tracks very long, if you didn't create your character set first when you open up Tracks, this window will be blank and you won't see anything. You won't see LP Rifle first or anything else that you should have created as a character set.
So, under this character set, though, we want to go ahead and take our animation that we've got and build clips from that. To build the first clip, I'll go up to Create, Clip, and open up its options. For the name of this clip, it's going to be Idle. I'm going to leave the keys in the timeline. I'm going to need those keys there later when I go to create the fire clip.
Okay.
The range of this is going to be from frame 1 to frame 2. And that should about do it for idle. I'll create clip, and it created it, but we don't really see anything. Is where basically the clips are stored over in the visor. If I was to open that up, go over to character clips, there we have our clip.
Right. When you check the keep keys in timeline options, all you're going to be able to do is save these clips only into the visor. You won't be able to put them directly into the timeline. Also, I wanted to note that we are just using a single frame animation for our idle animation. Now, is that always going to be what you need to do?
Not necessarily. Generally, for an idle sequence, you might have several frames, 10 frames maybe, where the gun is simply wavering slightly in the air.
Okay, to make it look like the character's breathing or something.
Right. In this case, though, we just wanted the sequence in place so the gun would have something to return to after firing.
Okay.
So there's our first clip, and now we need to set the fire clip. So back over to the Tracks Editor, Create Clip, Options again, call this one Fire, and this time I'm going to uncheck Leave Keys in Timeline. This is the last sequence that we're going to be using, so we can go ahead and clean up the timeline. I'll set the range of this one from 2 to 15.
Okay.
And let's see, looks good, so I'll create the clip. And notice that we no longer have any keys in the timeline. Just as expected.
And in our visor, we have a new clip. Now, just as a note, occasionally when you create these clips, you'll notice your visor doesn't update and look like you don't have any clips at all. Just reach up, close your visor, and reopen it, and that should bring them back up.
Right. So now to go ahead and set these up so that they're in order for the export plugin, I can simply middle drag on each one. So I'll grab the idle first, middle drag it over into the Tracks Editor.
Okay.
Now the Tracks Editor will try to zoom in a little bit, so let me pan it back, zoom over.
There it is.
So I'm simply going to left drag this track, or this clip, over to, so it lines up with frame 1.
Okay.
Now I'll middle drag the fire clip in, and again, left drag it so that it matches up with the first clip.
Pretty easy.
Simple enough. So with those set up, that's about all the Maya-related setup we need to do to get the gun ready.
And just another quick thing that I failed to mention, and this is, it's kind of like an introductory thing if you've never seen Tracks before. So we did go into the visor, and then we did go over to the Character Clips tab. So when you first open up the visor, you'll typically see a list of paint effects. So just go over to your Character Clips tab, and you'll see all these guys.
So with that, though, we're done with both the visor and the Tracks Editor, so I'm going to close them out.
Okay.
And now it's time to take a look at the export plugin for the first-person model. First, I'll select the root, then open the skeletal export window, and check this out. Now I've got a whole section down here for animation export.
Very cool.
And all the sequences we have listed. Now, I do need to make sure I go back to Package and select the LP Rifle anim that I was using.
Right, we want these to be in the same package for organizational purposes.
So the name, LP Rifle First, is good, and I want to make sure I click-drag over both sequences to select them before I export.
Okay, so in this way you can actually choose what animations are going to go into this package when it's exported.
Right, you could set up all your animations in tracks and then later decide which ones to export.
Very nice.
So with that, simply click Export, and you'll notice it ran through all those clips and digested the animation to be sent over to Unreal Ed. And we get the result, export complete. So back over into Unreal Ed, drop down the mesh, and now we have LP Rifle first.
Cool.
There's the mesh, there's the joints. Now again, it is laying flat down, so let me go and line that back up by simply zeroing out the roll and yaw.
Okay.
So that's set up. And again, let's take a look at some sockets. We need to set up a tip and tip 2 for the first person as well.
All right.
So I'll simply add, just like in the third person, tip, bone name, bone flash.
Now, is there going to be any problem with naming both of these sockets the same thing? Because our last model had a tip as well.
No, these are both separate models,
Okay.
meaning that they have their own skeleton. So whatever it's named, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like having all the different characters in the game. They have similar skeletons.
Okay.
But it's a separate mesh, therefore a separate skeleton.
All right, cool.
So this attach alias tip is in reference to the LP Rifle first,
All
whereas
right.
the other one would be in reference to the LP Rifle third.
Gotcha.
So with that, we know that tip was supposed to be snapped to wherever this joint is, so we're just going to leave
Leave
the
to scale alone.
and leave translation alone and everything. So back up to sockets, I'll go ahead and work on the second one. Again, and like before, attach alias is tip 2. Bone name, bone flash.
Okay.
Now, we do want to adjust this one, so I'll go down to Test Static Mesh, and from the last lesson I should still have the XFX Minigun Muzz Flash first selected,
Okay.
so I can use that. And again, let me go ahead and turn
Reapply
on
the socket.
reapply to turn
Alright.
continuous on.
Now that's a muzzle flash.
So now, we'll just, let's see, move it down just a little bit. So under the translation, take the Z, -6, negative... Oh,
that looks
good.
pretty good, yeah.
So with that now, I can turn off continuous update, apply this one last time before save,
Okay.
and all the sockets should be good. And of course, need to take a look at the animation. Since we do have animation on this clip, check it out. Those sequences imported just fine.
Very
Matter
nice.
of fact, if I turn on looping, there we go.
Cool.
Now, I've got the sockets applied. I don't have to worry about the test mesh. That's not going to apply to anything in-game. All that is a visual reference for here. So I could clear it out if I wanted to work on it some more, or just save it out and be fine.
Go ahead and switch it off.
So, off. There we go.
Now, just as a note to everyone, go ahead and switch back to our LP Rifle third. And you'll notice something really, well, kind of odd going on.
We've got the bone flash snapped out a little bit, like it's jumped out of the gun somehow.
Right.
All this is simply an update issue within Unreal Ed's animation browser.
Right, don't let this scare you.
Inside the game, the bone flash really is where bone flash originally was on the third-person model. The problem is there's no animation set for the third person since, I mean, we don't need animation. It's just going to be attached to the player's hand.
Right.
Though the currently selected animation set is LP Rifle first, which does have a bone flash. I mean, one way around this is if you need to keep working back and forth a lot, you could always probably, take bone flash and maybe name it bone flash third or something.
Okay, cool.
Something so that it wouldn't know where to go for this animation.
Right, so it
set.
wouldn't have the same name for both different models.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
So, not an issue. The actual location is still where it was once you get in-game, and it doesn't have to worry about switching between the animation sets.
Cool.
So if you see that, don't worry about it. It's just an update issue with the animation set.
Right. So I guess from here we're ready to put some texture on these?
Yep. As a matter of fact, I think we're going to import a few textures into a package.
Cool.
So let me collapse some of these, and then I'm going to go over to the Textures tab, and I'll go to File, Import, and I have a list of textures in my project directory, starting with the beam.tga. I'll simply select that one and say Open. For the package, we'll use LP Rifle Text.
All right. Is it significant that you're importing Targa files?
That's simply the format I'm importing now. What those actually are is 32-bit RGBA8 textures,
Okay.
as opposed to, say, a DDS file for a DirectX compressed texture.
Okay. So if you're making your own files, like say inside of Photoshop or another editor, you should probably save them out as Targas.
Right. Initially bringing them in, that's helpful. They're easier to work with.
Okay.
You can actually compress them once you get them in the editor. Take a look at that shortly. So we've got what package we're going to use, and the name of the current texture. Beam is fine. I'm not going to set up a group since there's only going to be a few textures in this package.
All right.
I'll say OK, and we have the first texture imported. It's an effect we'll be using later. And again, RGBA8 because of the full 32-bit target file. If I was to right-click, this is where you get the compress, and you can choose a DXT compression level for it.
Okay, cool.
It really is a good idea to compress some of these in the end. So all you would do is select which one to compress, and then save the package again. Nice. And then you'll have your textures compressed. Just for testing purposes, though, RGBA8 will work just fine.
All right.
I'm going to import the second one, dark.tga. Really only using this one for a color.
Okay.
The same for green. And finally, a skin for the pickup and the third person.
I thought you said hiccup there for a second.
So, now we've got all these imported. I'll just hit save on this package so we have it ready. And yeah, I was messing around with this a little bit before, but just make sure that we have this package saved out, ready to use later when we need to load it in after compiling and running the gun in the game.
Right.
So now we have textures we can use. The first thing I'll do is let's set up the textures on the first person. I'll grab the dark one, and yes, these are just plain colors, but in the end, this is how you would go about applying them inside the animation browser.
So this won't be anything particularly gorgeous, but it's going to get the point across.
So with the dark texture selected, back into the animations browser, we select the LP rifle first, go down to skin, and we've got 2 slots because we had 2 textures applied to it in Maya.
Okay.
I'll grab slot 0, say use, so we've got kind of the center and barrel part of the gun, and apply the green texture to slot 1. We've got that set up. Now let me switch to the third person, grab its texture, simply hit use, and there we go. Now the animation package itself is ready to be saved out. So I'll hit save, and we'll call this lprifleanim.ukx. All is good. So now we have our animation package ready to go. One last thing I want to point out is I've already created a static mesh package for the pickup. If I check here, I have LP rifle static. And if I open that, all this is really is the third-person mesh exported as a static mesh. And we've covered static mesh exporting in other videos.
Right. In fact, we've got an entire video just on making static meshes. And you know, if I may, I should like to say that it's quite an awesome video. It's very well done, whoever was actually doing that one. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, moving right along.
So, same process for importing the pickup, which is, again, the third person exported as a static mesh. So with this all in place, with the texture package saved and the animation package saved, that's about it. That's all we need to do for importing. We have all the visual assets, if you want to look at them like that, compiled into our various packages and ready to be used once we get into coding.
So did you already save the animation package?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention at the time. No, very cool. So, I mean, we've got everything out of Maya, actually into Unreal Ed. So I guess from here, we're ready to go ahead and start coding things up to make this gun actually work inside the game itself. So that's going to wrap it up for this lesson. So thanks a lot, everyone.